Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, there's now been enormous controversy roiling the conservative movement, and it was triggered by an interview that Tucker Carlson conducted with Nick Fuentes. It's now already about 2 weeks ago. And this, of course, aroused enormous anger, rage, fury on the right, particularly the neoconservative right. But it also aroused rage in the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is this very powerful organization among conservatives, been around since 1972. And some of the donors to the Heritage Foundations were getting very unhappy. Nonetheless, the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, issued a short video in which he said, "Well, I'm not going to turn against my good friend Tucker
Yeah.
Carlson, and we have debates and whatever. I don't believe in cancel culture, deplatforming, and so on." But this caused absolute uproar within the Heritage Foundation.
Little did he know is that he was holding a hand grenade. He pulled the pin, but he forgot to throw it.
Right, he forgot to throw it. There was uproar within Heritage, and then he started backing away from his own earlier video. Always a bad idea. Never back away, because once you start backing away, your enemies smell blood,
Pile
and
on
it's very,
pile.
very unclear at this stage whether he will survive as the head of the Heritage Foundation. Now, but then Tucker Carlson um, subsequently went on Megyn Kelly's show, the tour show, and defended his interview, and in particular, he defended himself from the attacks, because there were vicious attacks, particularly from Mark Levin and, of course, Ben Shapiro. So this is where it becomes very important, really, to distinguish certain things, because the question with Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro isn't really Fuentes. Their issue is what's going on within the conservative movement as a whole, and the downgrading of Israel. That's really the issue. If it was just simply Fuentes, they wouldn't pay any attention. But the fact that Tucker Carlson, who is now, I think, the leading figure on the right, gives interviews and provides platforms for somebody like Fuentes, that's what has upset. And they've now launched a ferocious campaign, joined by National Review, essentially to drive Tucker Carlson out of the conservative movement. Now, the problem with that is that this is something that Bill Buckley used to do quite effortlessly 50, 60 years ago. But that was a different media landscape. You could drive somebody out and say, "That's it." You
Pat
don't, you know.
Buchanan.
Yeah, exactly. There's no other media outlets. You're gone. I mean, and he did that very successfully. He drove out the John Birch Society. He drove out Joe Sobran, who had devoted his whole career to National Review. He drove out Joe Sobran, and of course, then he tried to do that with Pat Buchanan. But Carlson now has such a huge platform that it's going to fail. But nonetheless, that isn't going to stop Levin, Shapiro, and the rest from trying to drive out Carlson from the movement by calling him Nazi, fascist, anti-Semite,
Right, right.
racist, white nationalist, and the rest.
Now, aren't we all just tired of that? You
Mhm.
know,
Right.
it's just exhausting. It's stale. It's ineffective. It shows weakness, not strength, because they're not using ideas. I watched the entire interview with Nick Fuentes, and to be honest with everybody, I don't know how you feel, George, but I'd heard the guy's name. Either you like him or you hate him or you have a, but I never watched him. And I saw he was on with Candace Owens, but it was a working day for me, so I saw just maybe 20, 25 minutes of it. Came home in the evening and I thought, okay, come on. Everybody's talking about this guy. I'm going to watch the entire interview. I don't really know what the big uproar is, okay? Uh, I would I would fault Tucker. Tucker was actually very introspective. He listened a lot. There weren't a whole lot of questions. Nick got to tell his story, a story that I didn't know, okay, at all. How Ben Shapiro tried to destroy, basically smother him in the cradle. I mean, he was like 18 years old, and they already had knives out to get rid of him. Nick Fuentes is a very talented communicator, very talented and very keen and sincere in presentation. Um, I think he has a lot to learn. He's learned a lot for his tender age. Um, I would fault both of them for what you and I are confounded by and exhausted by, conflating Jews and Zionism in Israel.
But well,
In their interview, I thought that
no,
they could have been.
I actually don't agree there. I think Tucker Carlson precisely did challenge him on that very specific issue. On
I
that
think,
issue, he challenged
yeah,
him. If
he
if
did,
you
but I
read the
think,
transcript, and that even
hang
comes
on,
out
hang on,
clearly.
hang on. It
Like,
was my point. It was my point. My point is, I think it was incumbent upon Tucker to say, let's just straight. Are you talking about Zionists? Or are you talking about Jews? That's what I wanted him to say.
right.
That's all I wanted to hear from Tucker. Okay, so and it opened up Tucker to this tsunami of criticism, which I do not think was warranted.
Right, but that's why if you just uh, either watch it again. I mean I wouldn't recommend watching it again. It's 2 hours, but if you read the transcript, it is clear that it's on that very issue that Tucker repeatedly comes back to of saying, that well, you basically, there are Jews who are clearly not Zionists. There, so you're
And there
making
are
this.
non-Jews that are Zionists.
Exactly, and then they got onto the subject. Tucker brought the subject onto Christian Zionists, and he said these are the people I absolutely hate. I abhor them, but they're not Jews. So you want to make this about Jews, whereas really it's about Israel. And at that moment, if you actually look at the transcript, Fuentes was kind of floundering around. He just couldn't answer that particular question, and that's really the most salient question, which is, well, these are two different things, Jews, and when you demonize Jews in this way, you say, yeah, but on almost any issue, you're going to find Jews on one side and Jews on the other. So whenever you say Jews believe this, okay, I'm going to find you plenty of Jews who believe the opposite.
Exactly. And that's why I wouldn't even have brought up the word Jew. I would have said Zionist and non-Zionist because that's the salient difference. That's the salient point in all of
Right.
this. Um, and so I'll look at the transcript. I'll take your word for it. My point is that Tucker didn't flesh it out as
Yeah,
clearly
that may say
on this very important issue.
right.
Okay.
He has a
But
certain style, and I think he said that when in his interview with Megyn Kelly, he has a particular style. It's very well. I guess he is confrontational. He is confrontational when he chooses to be. But I guess he felt that if he brings somebody over to his house in Maine, he's the host. It's not incumbent upon him to start, attacking that person. But I mean, I take your point. I think he should have been much clearer on that. He is clear. I mean, again, just read the transcript. He is, he precisely challenges him on that issue. He also challenges Fuentes as to why are you attacking people who are really on your side? Why are you attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene? And he didn't really come up with a good, oh, she was very mean to me and
well,
whatever. Well, who cares if she was mean to you?
yeah, well, see, that's something that it was left unsaid in the interview. Nick Fuentes is angry.
Mm-hmm.
He's really pissed off.
Good.
Is that people have been trying to take him down, left, right, and center, bank him, all this stuff, and he still comes back. Okay, he's an angry young man. He's I'm not angry. I'm calm. No, 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 no. I can see your body language. Look, you made it to Tucker's podcast. Wow. Okay. So I would, I mean, Tucker obviously couldn't say it, but I would, if there was an angel or a devil on the shoulder, whatever one you want to talk, he says, "Dude, you made it. Chill, chill. You made it."
Right.
Okay. So Tucker seemed tired to me.
Um,
Or maybe because there was that kind of juxtaposition in age and all that. But he seemed, I didn't see a lot of, he didn't, wasn't as vibrant.
That may
Okay.
be, that may be so. But he came under a lot of criticism. Remember after he did his interview with Putin, and I had defended him. I thought he was reasonable because again he took a took a decision not to be confrontational, and so in the end, I thought the interview wasn't particularly. I thought could have been much better. In fact, if he had asserted himself more, I think he would have been better. But he just didn't do it, and I think that
Yeah. See,
he has a particular style that's not necessarily the most conducive to extracting a lot of information.
look, for people in our lane, George, there couldn't be a good interview because you and I would say, but you could have asked this and you should have amplified. But that's taking a very nerdy position.
Right,
Okay.
right, right.
But
But I
if you
thought,
look at the general public, I think Tucker's strategy, at least when it came to Putin, and I think with Nick too, is that let them say what they want to say. Let them introduce themselves to
right,
the public because,
right,
Putin is, his reputation, whatever imagination,
right,
fantasies you want, always precede him. The
right.
same thing applied with Nick Fuentes here. Now, I left the interview with Nick. I'm curious. I can see he's being has the ability to elevate himself. I mean, you know what? I was thinking. I was thinking Mondani and Nick Fuentes, a kind of generational
Right.
shift. I
No,
don't know if
it
you
is.
see that.
But I think that's an interesting issue with Fuentes because ultimately, intellectually, I don't think very highly of him. And then, he said this about Hitler, he said this about the Holocaust or Stalin. I don't care very much. I mean, he just isn't sufficiently knowledgeable about these things to be their views. One should really take them seriously. What I think is significant, though, is that he is 27, and he obviously has a huge appeal to people of his age cohort, and that's why you have to think, well, we're not 27, so we're not in his target audience. So we may sort of look up to him and say, well, what's the fuss? Because he's not talking to us, but he is obviously talking to people of his generation, and they find it appealing. So then the question arises: well, what happens now? Is this something that can be channeled into the future of republicanism or conservatism? And that's a really interesting issue because he's too young really to run for anything. But I think that we're now moving into a kind of a post-Trump era, which seems odd, but we're already moving into
Exactly.
a kind of post-Trump era,
Exactly.
and we're now looking at who is going to pick up the mantle of Trump.
Well,
And it could be somebody who actually thinks that Trump hasn't gone nowhere near far enough. He hasn't delivered on the kind of American nationalism, American firstism that he had promised. And so I think that body of thought that Fuentes represents, I think could well become significant in 2, 3 years' times as the battle for the
I
Trump succession heats up.
I absolutely agree, and he told us exactly what he's doing, and Tucker asked him to dig a little bit deeper into his thinking, and he did. Is that you can either infiltrate the party and try to work within it, or go off the reservation and go full frontal attack.
Right.
He did the latter, and you're right. I mean, he's more concerned, Nick Fuentes and his cohort are much more concerned with the future of, first of all, the movement and then the party. They're more concerned, right now, they're focused on the movement, which is, politically speaking, the right strategy. Because Lindsey
Oh
Graham
yeah,
and
right.
Ted Cruz, okay, I mean, what Nick Fuentes and his cohort are saying, no, these guys are not the future of the
Right.
party.
Right.
We are. Okay. And you're absolutely right. Trump, he was very cagey about it now,
Right.
and again showed I showed and he was very, what's the word I want, nuanced, okay, because
Right.
he wouldn't attack Trump. He didn't
No.
criticize Trump. Okay, the MAGA movement has not fulfilled its hope and
Correct.
vision. And so he was very cagey about that, but his strategy is clear. And I think, when people under 40, particularly under 30, when they look at Lindsey Graham, Lady Graham,
Right.
Tel Aviv Cruz,
Yeah.
okay, this Mark Levin. I
Right.
mean, Mark Levin has become what he claims to hate. I mean, he's like a Darth Vader figure
Right.
right now.
Right. Right. No.
Okay? I mean, and a talentless one at that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. And they, what Levin and Lindsey Graham and the rest are doing is just simply spewing out these warmed over, Reaganite, and post-Reaganite slogans. And it just isn't, it just, no one wants to listen to that anymore. And so, and I think, Tucker Carlson put it very well, I think, when he was in Megyn Kelly. I mean, maybe an obvious point, but it says, well, the problem with them is that when they hear America first, that means Israel is second. And that's what really upsets them about that slogan, America first, which is very nicely put it. At least Israel second, maybe even third or fourth. And that's what upsets them, even by that America first. Now, what they're trying to do now, of course, is to discredit Tucker Carlson with the whole Israel anti-Semitism. It obviously it isn't working, but even the fact that Fuentes has emerged as a kind of a significant figure just shows how much the kind of intellectually we have moved. Israel is really toxic. It's a toxic subject now. I mean, it's almost inconceivable. I didn't think this would happen, but it's just inconceivable. People are just openly talking about why are we doing this for this horrible little country?
The clip is being circulated. I think it was Eric Trump and his wife. I think they were at a university, a gathering of young Republicans or whatever, and some kid comes out and talks about the U.S. liberty in 1960. Well, it was 1967, but you know what's going on here, George. If Who knew about the U.S. liberty 3 years ago? Oh,
No.
if you read antiwar.com, every single year they have an anniversary. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, people that are politically active obviously know about that. Okay. But I think if you 3 years ago be gone through, an average university and say, "What is the USS Liberty?" and they'll say, "Is that an episode of Star Trek?" Okay, I mean, this is what surprises me. And
Right.
you're right. This Israel is it's as a brand, it is toxic, and I don't see it reverse.
I think
I
so.
don't see in any way, shape, or form it can be reversed because now. Okay, it's kind of like Ben Shapiro, and you and I have talked about this. When Ben's talking about abortion and gun rights and immigration, affirmative action. He's boilerplate, okay? Completely no charisma whatsoever. But he can land a punch when it comes to framing an issue,
Right.
okay? But then, as George and I have said many, many times, when he does the Israel thing, don't even watch it. I mean, it's just lunatic stuff,
Right.
okay? But
Right.
and watching the political environment, if Ben was talking about economics. Okay, so well, he has a very strong libertarian view. Remember the interview he did with Tucker years ago, and Tucker was worried about animation, and with animation, like one in four adult men are involved in transportation, and Tucker said, "Yeah, well, they shouldn't allow it," and no, but that's just the marketplace. The market has the.
Right.
So what are we going to do with all these? Oh, they'll find something else to do. And Tucker said, no, we have to protect these workers.
Right.
You would see that kind of difference. But when it came to Israel, Palestine, just that's his thing. Okay, it's on his brain. And for me, that's always a choice. I'm not going to watch it because I know exactly what he's going to say. But
Yeah.
now. Now Ben is tarred by the issue. He's tarred and feathered himself on this issue. That's what he's all about. Because like before all of this, I say, well, supply side economics, Reagan and all that. That was part of his persona. No more.
But this is really the thing that, with these Israel firsters, and they are very, very dominant within the conservative movement, the Republican Party, ultimately, they just simply played along with the things that conservatives cared about, social
Exactly.
issues,
Exactly.
transgender, gay
Exactly.
marriage, yeah, supply
Free
side economics.
speech. Free
Uh,
speech.
yeah, all of that. But they didn't care about that. No,
No, they
they
didn't.
only pretended to care about that. What they really cared about was Israel. But this is, and they made their home among the among Republicans. I mean, this was a strategic decision made some time ago by the neocons in the early 1970s. They used to be Democrats. They wormed their way in among the Republicans and said, yeah, this is our home. And then they suddenly all became socially conservative. They'd never been in the slightest interested in any of that. But oh yeah, abortion, terrible, terrible. But of course, after Trump, many of them left the Republicans, and then kind of drifted back to the Democrats, like Bill Kristol and David Frum and the rest. But with these people like Ben Shapiro, they still haven't quite abandoned the conservative movement. But I think this war against them is just going to continue. I think there are going to be constant attacks against Mark Levin, and Levin, because he's so nasty, so horrible, so unpleasant, he's the one who keeps launching these onslaughts and says, he's going to crush Tucker Carlson. He's going to destroy him.
You
He's a
have to come through me and millions of other people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and throwing all these terms out. He's a Jew hater. He's anti-Semite. All this absolute rubbish. He's just essentially just simply destroying himself. I mean, he's just simply
Yes. But see,
self-immolating.
and the problem here is they're not addressing the issue. It's everything else. It's anti-Semitism. He's a Jew hater.
Yeah,
Well, what does the United States get from its relationship with Israel? It's a very peculiar relationship.
right.
They never want to have that
No,
conversation. And
no,
that's why they get angry because people are saying, well, what about the U.S. says liberty?
yeah,
And, I'm against foreign aid. Well, why are you for foreign aid for Israel, a
yeah.
very affluent, westernized
Right,
country?
right.
Why do they need aid? Why do they need foreign aid? They have health care for everyone, but we don't. Okay. I mean, these are, George and I have been talking about this, online, offline, as long as we've known each other. Okay. We just never thought it would be front and center
Well,
of the conversation.
that's right, and that's what's interesting because you've had presidents once they're out of office, they actually say this. Well, frankly, I don't think Israel ever really did anything for us, and in fact, when I was president, Israel was an absolute bloody pain in the neck. And then Nixon said this. I mean, Jimmy Carter said this, and that's the point. Nobody says it. Even now, and this again came out in that interview with Tucker Carlson with Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly turned out, well, yeah, but isn't Israel a great ally? Isn't it helping us in all sorts of ways? And then he said, how is it a great ally? Doesn't it make more sense for us to be friends with all the Arab states in the neighborhood, who are oil rich and have, Israel is just a small country and a net recipient of U.S. aid. I mean, why does it make sense to be pro-Israel rather than pro the Arab Gulf states? Nobody asks these questions. As I said, Nixon or Carter said after they're out of power that they were just it never made any sense for us always to pursue Israel's agenda. The fact that these questions are now asked, and I think it's going to be this is going to absolutely come up in 2028. JD Vance, he goes to all these conservative events at Turning Point USA. He gets constantly asked that very question. And,
It
and,
was,
and he
he
said,
was
well, this
like,
president, President Trump, he pursues America's interest. No, no, no,
no,
not
no,
Israel's interest.
but
But he
see,
actually has to say it. No, we
if,
pursue our
if,
interest, not Israel's.
if you're explaining, you're losing. If you're explaining, you're losing. Okay. I mean, the image that comes to mind when JD Vance is at these, he's like in an aquarium and then they let the piranha in.
Right.
Okay. because he has no good answer. And we don't know what's in his heart. We don't know what's in his mind. My feeling is that, yeah, this is just a pain in the neck. Okay. And I'm glad you brought up J.D. Vance because not that Nick Fuentes is going to run for president in the next cycle, young, okay? But, it's not J.D. Vance versus Tel Aviv Ted. Now it's turning into Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nick
Right,
Fuentes. This is the shift. The shift is moving to the
right,
obviously it should move to the younger generation. That's natural. But now we have firebrands out there.
right.
And there's nothing that Lindsey Graham can possibly say. Ted Cruz has so disgraced himself. I mean, really. I don't know how he could even go out in public right now
Yeah,
because Tucker apologized for being tough on him. Remember? He was
right,
like, I shouldn't have been so hard,
right, right, right. Yeah,
you know. And then this thing gets riled up, and he's called from Tel Aviv. You got to
yeah,
get into action. I mean, and this is all transparent, everyone, to see. It's not hard. It's not complicated.
right, right.
And again, you know, um, the young men, particularly men that follow Nick Fuentes, they're saying, "Oh, this is all obvious. It's obvious to everyone. It just
Yeah,
why can't we talk about it?"
right, right.
Okay, so I'm not a booster for Nick Fuentes. He's not my brand, but maybe
No,
I'm just simply too old.
no,
Okay,
I think so.
but if you're going to have freedom of speech, then you have freedom of speech. If you want to have the marketplace of ideas, then have the marketplace of ideas.
No, no, let's go. But obviously, Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, who pretend, oh, we're for free speech. We're not saying that Fuentes shouldn't be platform. That's exactly what you're
It's
saying. And
exactly what.
it's like, don't pretend. Oh, no, I'm not saying you should be platform, but you'll keep, but he's a Nazi supporter, Hitler supporter, a Holocaust denier. It's exactly what you are saying. But the question then, which I wonder now for 2028. I mean, obviously, J.D. Vance is going to try to present himself as the heir apparent to Trump. And now the question that I have is that will Tucker Carlson throw his hat in the ring? I think it's a good chance of that. I think he's now moved in a very distinctive direction. He's no longer the person he was at Fox News. He's now, really was a very serious public intellectual. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in 2028.
You and I've talked about this before, and up until the last few weeks ago, I was a categorical no way. Okay, now I'm thinking about it. Okay, why? Because there's an empty space here. There's an empty lane right now because we have Cruz, we have Mark Levine, we have Lindsey Graham. They're in their own swamp. Okay. Then we have the up and coming. You have Nick Fuentes, again, who cannot run in the next cycle. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Um, she was on The View, everyone. That's a clear indication that she's trying to
Right, right.
widen her
He's
grasp.
on CNN all the time now.
Okay, yeah, on CNN all the time now.
Used to be.
But when we look at this guy, like Megyn Kelly, as much as she wants to present herself as independent and free, she's in the Cruz,
Yeah, yeah,
Graham, Mark Levine
yeah,
lane. Okay, as much as she tries to fight it,
yeah, yeah.
she's the it's very comfortable for her. And she said, "Look, I'm a bridge. I'm talking
Right.
to everyone." But she's intellectually very shallow.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so too. Yeah.
And her delivery, and whatever works, this is this age. She has a very endearing way to approach her audience, and she's very successful at that. Okay, it doesn't work on me though.
It
Okay,
doesn't, me
but
neither.
it works on a lot of people. So,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
my long introduction to, I think George is right. Tucker can fill that gap. Okay. He knows who the piranha are. He knows who they are. He knows how it all works. Now, I don't know what his disposition towards specifically Nick Fuentes and more general to the movement that is developing. I'm not clear about that right now, and maybe he doesn't want to say. but he is a very much a bridge figure, and he's the Walter Cronkite of the conservative movement. Okay,
Right.
people know who he is.
That's right.
Okay,
They know exactly the way they knew who Trump was, but he's the figure for the post-Trump era. He's the one who can articulate, well, Trumpism has fallen short. Trump promised a great deal. He's had by then it'll be 12, 13 years to deliver, and he's done some things, but he's failed on other things. He will be kind of the new face of America First, American nationalism, and he's a very, very good communicator. I mean, you watch him on stage. He talks in a very simple way. He has a very simple, straightforward way of communicating with people. Trump has that, but he's a little more sophisticated. He doesn't have Trump's crudity, but
well,
he's a
how do you
very,
like
very
it?
good
He's
communicator.
a folksy
Right,
intellectual.
exactly. Yeah, I mean that is not easy to pull off what he does, and so Vance actually, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's like when you actually listen to him speaking, it's kind of boring. He doesn't have any
But
real
it's
charisma.
but it's part of the job too. He's handicapped. Okay,
Right, but I don't think he's
I
ever been a
maybe
particularly exciting figure.
maybe I'm giving him a handicap here that isn't warranted. But first and foremost, he is the vice president. Okay, and he has to support the talking points of the president. He does. In all honesty, everyone, everyone knows I was a big fan of J.D. Vance before he went into politics. Okay. Since then I wasn't aware of his involvement in the tech world as much as he's very well connected there.
Right, right.
But I don't know. JD just doesn't have the secret sauce.
I don't think so. I
He
don't think
doesn't
so.
have the secret sauce.
I think when they start lining up for the heir apparent. Remember, interesting in 1988 there was a kind of battle as to who was going to be Reagan's heir apparent, and Pat Buchanan wanted to run in '88, but then he kind of deferred. He said, "Well, Jack Kemp is regarded as the father figure of conservatism. I'm going to wait for Jack Kemp and let him run." It was a bad decision. Kemp was an absolute disaster, a total fiasco. Buchanan should have run in '88. I don't think Tucker's going to make that same mistake. Well, I'll let JD Vance do it, because he's the heir apparent. I think Tucker will say, no, I think I can do the job better than Vance.
Well, and also um, we have with Tucker Carlson, he's extremely been very much vetted. I don't think there's I don't see an impediment for it. If he wants it, I think he can
Okay.
get the nomination. I think if he wants it,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Said differently, it's a race that he could. It's up to him to win or lose,
Yeah.
okay. And over the last few weeks, I've been thinking about this. Is that, and I like Tucker. When he had his Fox News program, I don't think I ever missed one, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and I think I don't agree with him on everything, but I think he truly cares about the country. I think that he has been able to telegraph that. Okay. Like you said with these other guys, like I'm America first, but Israel's not second. Okay. The mask for these people has just
Right.
completely fallen off. I mean, so what do you stand for?
Right.
I think that this is Tucker can easily segue
Yeah.
himself into this if he wants it. And he has young people know who he is. Maybe he's not hardcore enough, okay, but he's far more articulate than Trump is,
He's
okay?
very articulate, and everything with him has an authenticity. So when he starts talking about religion, it has an authenticity. You think, okay, he has been someone who's been thinking about his faith. And he describes in detail all his ideas. Then when he starts talking about the social issues, again, it always comes across as something that he has thought through and cares about, rather than all the various Ted Cruzes and everyone else, they who just know, okay, listen, this has to be what I say now. I say this now. That boom. Now, can I have the nomination, please? I mean, that's you never get that sense with him.
It's very interesting. I don't know what monologue it was, or it was definitely an interview now. I remember. I don't know who the interviewee was, but he said something, and I just thought, is this a calculation or is this coming from the heart? He said, I'm reading the Bible from beginning to end.
That's what he
Now,
said. That yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know who he was. I don't remember who he
I
was
think it was.
interviewing.
Well, I don't know when he first said that, but he said that to Megyn Kelly also the other day. Where he recently read the Bible from end to end, which is quite. Not many people have done that. I mean,
The
but
Old Testament's a tough nut to crack.
exactly. And if but he
The
said he
New
went
Testament, I've read the entire of the New Testament. I couldn't get through the Old Testament. It's just I don't who are these people?
right, exactly. But he said no. I went through from the beginning, from Genesis through the Book of Revelation. So he went through the whole thing. So again, there's a kind of the genuineness. So I think that I think the struggle now for the post-Trump Republican Party is on now, and I think Tucker
Yeah,
Carlson is going to be
absolutely.
a key figure, which is why I think he's now coming under so much ferocious attack, an attempt to destroy him, smear him, and sort of get him out of the way. Right away, do to him what was done to Pat Buchanan a generation ago.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work.
I don't say.
I just don't. I just don't. Look, this whole pile-on thing. First of all, it's unsavory. Where's your evidence? I've known Tucker for 20 years. You're telling me he's this? I know who he is. I
Right,
watch his podcast. I am a subscriber to his network. You're revealing something that only you know, Mark
right.
Levin and Ben Shapiro. It doesn't cut any ice with people. You look like a vicious, wounded, scared animal with your behavior right now. You
Yeah,
have no arguments. Tucker only has arguments.
right.
And I think,
Sorry, I mean, and Levin is just so. I mean, apparently Tucker wrote a message to Levin, saying, "Hey, we've been offered a chance, I think, to debate. I think a turning point. You know, I hope you'll take up an offer to debate me at the Turning Point USA." And then Levin talking about this message. I wrote to him, "You Nazi scum." You filthy bastard. I will never debate you. I'll never give you any kind of a platform. You filthy
you know
bastard.
what he
Well,
sounds
that's
like?
really nice. Thank you. That's really mature.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a purple-haired Democrat.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And what we're going to find is that it's not party versus party. It's elite against everybody else. Mark Levin will feel very comfortable with the Democratic Party elite on this issue.
Right.
Okay, on this issue,
Right.
and they have no scruples whatsoever. The
No.
mask is off. We all know what's most important for these people, and they will reach across the aisle effortlessly. Okay, if to get what they want. Okay, and they watch out, everybody. They will burn this thing down.
Yeah.
Okay, including themselves, okay?
I absolutely.
Because it's a form of psychosis for me. It just you can't rationally talk to these people. And I would always say that on these podcasts and privately with George. I mean, progressives, yeah, I can talk. I have no problem with that. Okay, progressive people are actually quite interesting in many ways. And you can talk to them, you can exchange ideas, okay? But with liberals,
Yeah.
it's like talking to a brick wall because you obviously when they see us, we're from the get-go illegitimate to talk to. Okay, but I'm a conservative. I can talk to progressives. I can talk to unionists. Okay, I with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Levin is beginning to talk like that, like liberals.
I will like. Well, I think that we're going to see, but I think I think we can conclude that the race for the post-Trump succession, I think, has begun in a quite ferocious and vicious manner, as was to be expected.
All right, George, let's be. I know that it was a little unstable there for a second, but I think we're back. I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's go for odds for Tucker 2028. What's your percent?
I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to run, and I think if he runs, I think he'll win. I think it's going to be between him and JD Vance, and I think he'll win. I think it's the somebody who's a gifted communicator. I think will always prevail. I mean, in this media environment, having solid credentials, and you've done this, this, and this, just that doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, and we're seeing with the monopolization and oligarchization of the media, it's not working, George.
Right,
Just because you own CBS News doesn't really mean squat.
right, right, right.
You
And
know,
all the yeah, yeah. And all the things that used to trip candidates up don't really work. Like, oh, you got this wrong, or you got the president of Kazakhstan wrong, and all that. Those little games, they don't work anymore. So the gaffe. Oh, he committed a gaffe. That's not going to work. Even if Tucker does commit a gaffe, you'll say, okay, well, big deal. And
well, I mean,
Trump kind of changed the equation in such a
exactly.
fundamental way that you can't go back to the kind of the pre-Trump era.
Wow. The sin of committing a gaffe. We
Yeah,
all commit gaffes, okay? That actually makes someone more endearing.
right.
Because he's just like I am. I'm just
Right.
like he is,
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
So I think the media environment, buying CBS News, potentially buying CNN, who
Right.
cares? I mean, to end on this here, Nick Fuentes in the interview with Tucker, and Tucker let him, give his biography. It's pretty amazing that Nick Fuentes was on Tucker, considering all of the obstacles they threw in front of him,
Right.
and that he was able to surmount. That's
Yeah.
really remarkable, really remarkable. And I want to make it very clear here, George and I think I can speak for George and I, we're not supporters of Nick
No, no,
Fuentes.
not at all.
We're
But
not.
but but I just want to following up on what you just said. It's very interesting why this interview has caused the sensation. Remember, Glenn Greenwald interviewed Nick Fuentes, I think 2 weeks earlier. No one paid any attention to that. It just came and went, boom. I mean, it's never. Michael Tracy also, I think, did it a few months ago, interviewed him. It was this interview that caused it, and I think it's because of Tucker Carlson, because of the stature of Tucker Carlson within the conservative movement, why this triggered this hysterical response. The Glenn Greenwald interview, that no one paid any attention to that. This one was it, and that just shows the significance of the fact that it was Tucker Carlson and the fight now for the post-Trump era.
It's very interesting. I think you're absolutely right because remember the Republican primary of 2016, how Trump took every like pins on a bowling alley.
Right,
One boom, 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 boom. One Tucker can do it with this crowd.
right,
This would be almost a no-brainer, and I
right.
think that they see that as a possibility. I will probably upset some people, but Tucker could be a successful version of Trump.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think so too. And I think that those figures from the past, I'm sure Ted Cruz is going to throw his hat in the ring and everything. It's not going to work. Wheeling out, warmed over Reaganism, but pretending you're an America first, and so people have already seen through that. And I think that that's what Cruz is going to do. Also, Rubio is going to do. They're all going to try and
Oh,
pretend. Oh, we're Trumpians, but fundamentally it's the same Republican playbook, which is interventionism everywhere, Israel firstism. Oh, and tax cuts.
yeah, yeah. Well, Ted Cruz eliminated himself with that interview with Tucker.
Yeah,
I'm paraphrasing, but I went into the Senate to protect Israel. Just clip that,
yeah,
and there you go. You're done. You're done with this environment and
yeah,
this environment. You're done.
yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
even know why you would try.
Yeah,
You know, there's a break going on where this is something. Obviously, it always happens generationally. This is that change on steroids right now. And the thing is that the establishment has no control over it at all. The more they try to control it, the more it blows up in their face. Okay. So we're going to see, Mark Levin's going to die of a heart attack before this is all over. Okay. Because his entire world is crumbling around him. It was so comfortable, so easy. And now there's no, he is the impediment to these people are the seeds of their own destruction here. And we're watching it in real time. And who is empowered? Who is empowered by all of it? Tucker. Tucker came out on top. He came out on top.
Yeah,
Tucker's an anti-Semite. He's Hitlerian. No, he's not. We know who he is.
that's
He's
right.
not like, Mayor Pete that came out. He was a project. He was a project. Okay.
Right.
A big finance. Okay. We don't know anything about Mayor Pete. But
Yeah, right.
we know that Tucker has dogs. We know that he likes to wear flannel shirts and he drives a truck and he likes to go fishing. I
Right.
mean, how many biographies of people out there are better known than Tucker's?
Right, that's right. Yeah, and apparently, when he came out on stage recently,
He brought two of them.
he brought the dogs, which that's a new one. I never never come across that somebody bringing dogs onto the stage. So yeah, absolutely. That's authenticity. That's what counts in politics. Some people can see, hey, this is somebody who stands for something, believes in something, and has a distinctive worldview rather than the sort of the artificial politician who's basically asks the consultants, what am I supposed to think, what am I supposed to
Exactly.
say?
Well,
Yeah,
because this is such an interesting topic, I want to ask one more question before we close. Who do the Democrats have?
well, that's is a very difficult. At the moment I would say it's that woman in Michigan who's been playing quite shrewdly, Gretchen Whitmer, because she's been making nice with Trump. So kind of, hey, we don't want to go become too extreme on the left. That's, at the moment, that's how it seems that if it's going to be between her and blow dry Gavin Newsom, I think she's more likely. But I better than that, I can't say.
And
What do you
maybe
think?
I think it's a barren field. Okay. Um, AOC.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Too narrow. Her
Yeah.
constituency is just too narrow. There's no way she can win a national election. And I think the
Uh,
Democrats will know she can't win a national election.
Newsom is he's just a boilerplate cookie cutter blow dried guy. I mean, he never says anything that catches I just think it's dribble. It's just the
Yeah,
usual.
so it is dribble. I mean, obviously he's going to make a run, and but I think that there is going to be among the Democrats some sense that, well, we have to take on board Trumpism. We have to just like the way after Reagan the Democrats was, we have to take on
Exactly.
board
Exactly.
Reaganism. We have to take some aspects of Reagan and adapt it to the Democrats. So that opened the way for Bill Clinton. That's why I think that it could be somebody like Gretchen Whitmer, who's gone out of her way, though she's a Democrat, to have good relations with the Trump administration. So that's why at the moment I would say that it's going to be her, but who the hell knows?
Interesting, right after the Mondani victory, Trump was being asked about that election, but about other things. Trump started talking about something that got a lot of attention and got my attention, affordability.
Right.
He's talking about affordability. Well, that's what Mondani was talking about. Okay. Um, Republicans and Democrats have to talk about affordability, okay? And that's good. That's going to come to the fore. I don't know. This is a very exciting time. I think it's a very dangerous time. Um, I worry about political violence. A lot of people are really, their whole worldview is being shattered right in front of them, okay? And it just a groundswell that I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, okay? Except for maybe the excitement of the idea of Donald Trump. It was very interesting days in 2015, 16. Okay. The prospect of a Trump president, which you and I thought, well, that's insane. But,
Right.
these are the times that we live in right now. So, all right. Keep an eye on Tucker. We'll keep, and you didn't give me odds, but you're
Yeah,
saying
I know.
most likely.
I, I,
I know. It's okay. We should,
I'd
we
say
usually try to avoid that here.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. That's how I think. But with politics, chances are I'm going to be wrong. So I'm tentatively say, yeah, I think it's going to be Tucker. But
Well, I think that, to end, I think there'll be a draft movement
yeah,
potentially.
yeah, and look, and I think once the consultants come to you, serious consultants come to you and say, I think you have the inside track here. You've got all this, and this is attractive. And even if you have a nice life, and you're thinking, so I don't want to do that. I have such a nice life here in Maine, but ultimately you're always going to be tempted. I mean, it's just human nature. You're going to be tempted. Hey, I think you basically have the inside track to get the nomination and therefore the presidency. I think they'll persuade him to run.
Yeah, I think that there'll be a draft movement.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what may tip the scales. Okay, um, Tucker is very wealthy, and if he doesn't succeed, he'll be chirping from the sidelines until he's an old man. I mean, there's really no downside for him to give this a shot now.
No,
I would have said I argued differently a year ago, for example. I thought there would be a downside, but because um, I mean, I think maybe for Tucker, you want to make it all about me? Okay, let's make it all about me.
no, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think that since losing that perch on Fox News, I think he's emerged as a major intellectual figure. And so, contrary to everyone on the New York Times, oh, this is going to be the end for him. It's like like all the other Fox News hosts, who kind of disappeared from like Bill O'Reilly, and so no, that's the exact opposite of what actually happened. He's not much bigger than he was in the days of Fox. So that's why I think I think he's a very much a serious candidate for that.
Bigger. They're making him bigger with every passing hour.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. This is part of our Sunday wrap. This is The Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Do I hear pattering footsteps coming my way? There you go. Who's this big guy?
Whoa,
It's Buddy,
whoa, Mr. Tip Jar himself.
Mr. Tip Jar himself.
Yeah, yeah. Good of you to join us for once.
Go ahead, finish it off, George.
Yes. So we have our live stream tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Please join us. And in the meantime, now that Buddy has joined us, that kind of brings up a very difficult subject that Buddy has delegated to us, which is the tip jar. Buddy's not at all happy. He keeps complaining and says, I went to business school, I went to, the Harvard, trying to study flow charts and, revenues and expenditures, and the numbers are not coalescing. So, in order to keep Buddy on an even keel, please, anything you've got lying around, put it straight into Buddy's tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And above all, but take all these flow charts away from Buddy. They're not doing him any good. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.